Hi, hello, it's Pip here. Welcome to July's Blends Club. This month we're looking at flowers and floral images. The blends that you will have received in your pack are these. So you have two Rococo Rose, that's the combo pack, okay, the light and the dark, and then you have a light Old Olive, and then you have what's called a colour lifter. Okay, and these are all useful pens that you will use. The colour lifter you'll use for everything, and these obviously are great colours for florals. Okay, so I'm using the Bloom and Grow stamp set, which is a new stamp set from the catalogue. Bloom and Grow has some beautiful floral images on it, and these are all shown at 70% because they're actually massive, they're huge. So lots of great sentiments, lots of great florals. Also comes with a set of embossing folders to cut them out, but we're not going to be using those in the Blends Club. We're just going to be concentrating on colouring in. So I've coloured this one in, and we're working also, or at least this example shows that if you were in the June's Blends Club, you also received the light petal pink, and we didn't really get a chance to use it very much last month, so I'm using it here to create some of these beautiful blended pinks. However, if you don't have that and you weren't in June's Blends Club, don't panic. The one we're going to work on today is just going to use the four pens that are in your pack this month. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to zoom in a bit. I'm going to put my little grid paper. Remember, we always need to have a piece of paper underneath our stamping so that we protect our surface. And I know it makes your eyes go funny, so I'm sorry about that, but we're just going to zoom in a little bit more so that you're right in and hopefully focusing in on that. Okay, so I'm hoping the light's okay, looks okay. So we have here the two, the dark and the light. And last month we looked at moving from a dark centre out to a lighter edge. This time we're going to work the other way around. So I want to show you what it looks like working from a dark centre. Oh no, hang on, this one's that way. No, this one. Sorry, this one's going to be working the other way around. This one we are working this way around. So we're going to work from a dark centre out to a light edge. And again, with the flowers, when they're this tightly enclosed, you're going to use the inside, not the inside, you're going to use the small tip, okay? And I recommend going out and actually looking at some flowers and seeing where the darkness comes, because it comes from where the petals are really interlocked. So where they're tightly clustered together, that's going to be darker, okay? And then as they move outwards, it's going to get lighter. And now you could just go over this, as we did last time, with a stroke like this. Get just nearly into the edges. Don't go all the way into the edges. Remember, we don't want to go over those edges because they tend to bleed. Okay, like this. And I decided previously that that was part of this flower, but I think it's part of the next one. So we're just going to do this. And you can see already that it's starting to just blend those colours beautifully. But then what do you do with the end? You know, this end piece here. So what I do is I go back in very gently, just with a sort of a fine dab of this light coloured pink. Okay, so this is the light Rococo Rose. Just dotting some colour up to towards those edges. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my colour lifter, because it can actually be used for colouring, not just for lifting. And if you just run that round the edges of your flowers, it blends them together. It's very clever, considering it's a white pen. Really, it's actually got something in it which will lift away the colour. But if you use it like this, you can actually get that colour to move just a little bit more towards the edges, and you get a blended look. I'm just going to blend that in. You can use this for highlighting. So if you're highlighting any element of a face or a balloon, for example, you know, you want to put that little dash of white on a balloon, and then just go back in again, a little bit more of the rose, because the blender, the colour eraser, does what it says on the tin. It erases, but it also blends, because it's trying to erase it in a nice soft way. So you can just go and add just a bit more colour where you want it, and then go back in again with this. So blending's all about layering, basically. It's building up layers of colour. It's not about just whacking colour on and hoping for the best. It's all about being a little bit more knowledgeable, really, I guess you'd say, about where the colours will go and how they will work together. But see, that looks pretty, doesn't it? And here's the one that uses the light petal pink. See, it's a little bit more orangey. Put them next to each other. So you've got the Rococo Rose and then the orangey petal pink one. So that just gives you an idea. And then if you want to have a bit more dark, you're thinking, oh, actually that dark's disappearing again. Again, go back in, but only go back in now where it's, because it's quite wet, we can still go back in with that. And then you still, I would go over and just blend a little bit more. Like that, very gently going back in and then seeing how that looks. And sometimes it will take a while because it needs to soak in, so don't immediately go and go, oh, that looks dreadful. Have a look, just let it kind of settle and see how it looks then. Okay, so then we're going to do exactly the same with all the other colours, with all the other flowers. So we're going to start with dark in the centre, and I'm not going to bore you with all of this because, you know, once you've got the hang of it, you've got the hang of it. And actually you can be quite quick with these, because these ones I'm just gonna, oh no, I had the wrong one, oh dear. Okay, this is going to be really dark at that edge. See, it happens, but you know, you can always lighten it up. Go back in with your colour lifter, just lighten that up. Look at that, see how that lightens it? Almost to the same colour as the light one. It's so clever. It's an amazing, yeah, it's an amazing way that it works. And the colour lifter is great if you've got something that's gone outside of the line. Okay, you need to leave it till it dries. I'm just going to see if I've got one on any of my previous ones. Has any of these bled over a little bit? No, that's annoying. Okay, I'll try and find one, or I'll do one and record it later. So that's now gone a little bit darker, see, because I haven't been using the colour lifter. So again, you can just go in and just lighten some of these pieces up a little bit, just to make it a little bit more matching to the one next to it. And as it dries, it will tone down to that lighter pink anyway. And then this one, dark, yes, dark here, here, because it's in shadow from the flower behind as well. So not only are you working with the shadows inside the flower and where it would normally be dark, you also need to think about, well, where's it going to be dark in relation to what it's next to. You know, this is going to be darker, but because it's behind the other flower, and that helps to make it 3D. So you know, if you really concentrate on making this bit here a little bit darker, and you know, this bit here a little bit darker too, just with tiny dots, tiny little bit, and then blending in, you can really get that sense of depth of florals as they sit in a bunch together. I've done this bit again. I don't think that's part of the flower. Is that the light or the dark? That's the light. I don't think that's actually part of the flower, but you know what? I don't care. It sits well. So, and some flowers, some petals won't have any dark on them at all, because they're sitting in the light. So this one up here is actually quite light because it's sitting higher up in the bunch. There we go. So now that those are, and if they're not blending, just go back in and blend them again. Again, as I say, it's layers, it's just layers. A little bit of colour lifter at the edges. Have I missed one? And keep turning your project around. I find that that's a really good way of seeing if you've actually missed any of the flowers or petals. So like I've missed that one there. Because when you're working up close, sometimes it's hard to see what's part of the flower and what isn't. So it's good to know that. Now, because this piece here isn't part of the flower, I could go in and try and lift that, but it'll need to be when it's really dry. So the other thing I noticed and I wanted to tell you about, which I hadn't told you before, was that you can actually put a light colour on top of a dark colour and it will change the colour. So you can do it with a colour lifter, but you can also do it with another colour of a blend, and it will not adversely affect your blend. Okay, so it won't, the colour doesn't stay on the nib. I have no idea how it works. It's just genius. So we're just going to leave it with them and accept their genius, because they, Stampin' Up guys, know what they're doing, and I can't explain it, but it works. So we'll just go with it. So we'll just do this. There we go. So this is the light petal pink, okay, which normally you would expect you'd have to, you know, go around quite carefully with it. But if I just start to pop it in here, you will see that it is starting, it starts to lift the dark colour, and suddenly you've got lighter centres. And yet it's not on the tip. You know, if I do that, it's still petal pink. So that's why, you know, sometimes you might even add colours that you wouldn't even think would go, you know, oh, I can't add a light pink on top of a dark red or something. Well, actually, yes, you can. And it will actually start to move the colour in the cardstock and make it a different colour. It's so clever. Look at that. See that? Hopefully you can see that this one here, for example, the centre is definitely now lighter than the outside, and that's just by putting that onto it. It's very strange but true. So then I just use the lighter one here, but you don't have to. You could go in and you could actually just leave those white if you wanted to, if you didn't have the light pink. So if you don't have this colour from the last time, we're going to just do a couple of those, and then the rest I'm just going to leave light. Then we get to our leaves, and you need to give your leaves a little loving. Okay, don't just sweep them in and go, oh, there you go, that's a leaf, job done. They are just as important in terms of creating depth of field and focus in your project as the roses and everything else that's in there. Everything that's on your image, you know, needs to be looked at in terms of it. This one here, for example, is definitely behind, so you need to darken that up by going back in again. This one's quite light, so maybe just a little extra stroke down the centre where the line is, and that's it. This one here is definitely going to be darker just here, but quite light on the tip. Again here, dark here, but light on the tip, and again this one. And if you put dark too much in one direction, don't panic, Mr. Mannering, because you've got your colour lifter. So if you want to really lighten it up and give it some highlights up here, you just come in with your colour lifter and it will slowly give you that highlight. And you have to be patient. You have to, as I say, it's all about layers. Just build it up gently, and you can see it's lightening it up. Especially these ones. These ones take a little bit more. Obviously I put a little bit more green on there. But there, can you see that? Hopefully, yeah, you can see that for sure. So there you go. Okay, so we've got to that point. So in your pack, you will have a Whisper White card base, thick one. You'll have some Rococo Rose that's cut to this size, and you'll have a piece of cardstock cut to this size. Okay, it should go across the whole width of the card. And then you've got a piece of ribbon. Now this ribbon, I just want it showing under the edge like this. So I'm going to cut this down the middle, and then you've got two bits. Okay. And then if you pop just some snail down the edge, right down the edge of your cardstock on both sides, okay, you can attach this ribbon so that just the trim is showing. You just want that scalloped edge showing. Yeah, a bit more, a bit less, a bit more, a bit less, a bit more. I think at the top probably just like that. There we go, and I've given it to you a bit longer so you can cut it off when you're happy with it. And then on the bottom we're going to do the same. Pop that down there. And it just gives a nice edging to your sentiment. Trim that bit off there. Oops. Okay. And you could use tape, it doesn't have to be snail, you could use whatever you want. And then when this goes on top, then that's going to, it's a very, very simple card. All of these cards are going to be simple because obviously we want to focus in on the blends. And then that's just going to sit like that there. Okay, and I would put that up with some Stampin' Dimensionals. There you go. So that's your first card, done and dusted. Now let's move on to your second. And the second card, not actually going to finish it. The second card is this one. And I'm just going to finish this one with you, and we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to go from light in the centre to dark at the outside, and again show you how that is done. So I started off with my light Rococo. Come back in again so that you can see. There we go. So yeah, so I started off with my light Rococo Rose, and this time I'm just flicking it just over these sort of stameny bits like this, and this time, even though we know this is going to be a bit darker down there, we'll just put a bit of light in there to start off with, because you can always move it around later. Then I went back in with my dark to go to the edge, and remember, you don't have to go right to the edge. You can, I think that's a petal, yeah. You can stop just before the edge, especially if you're a little shaky. Just try and lay it down in a line. If you're shaky, it's probably easier to try and do a whole line at once rather than trying to do the little things that I do, because that takes a little bit more dexterity to do the dots, I guess. So just do it in a line. And then it looks a right mess. At this point it always looks like a right mess. So then we're going to come in again with the light, and again circular motions, blend it nicely. You're really thinking about getting it nice and wet, okay? And when it's really wet is when the magic happens. So you need to get it so that you're really coming through on the back. Okay, because that is when the colours will blend at their best. because you're trying to get the cardstock wet with alcohol. Trying to get it drunk. No, not really. But you're trying to get the paper wet with alcohol so that the ink will move through the paper fibres, because normally with these fibres they're very, very short. It's not like watercolour paper where you've got lots and lots of fibres to work with. These are really tiny fibres, which is why it works great for this. And so they soak the colour up and they never let it out. So it never moves once it's locked in. And that's why when you stamp with the stamping pad, it stays and it looks great. And it dries very quickly. And that's because it locks in that moisture very quickly. So with the alcohol, what you're trying to do is actually break that code, if you know what I mean, and actually add and say it's actually okay, we want these colours to blend. And so they form this layer between the cardstock and, like, inside the cardstock, it lets the layers and fibres talk to each other and accept the fact that the colour moves between the two. So there you go, that's kind of how it works. So here is my petal, light petal pink. If you don't have the light petal pink from last month, guess what you can use? The colour lifter. Yay! And you'll see that here it's looking quite yellow and orangey, but this one I did earlier, you'll see it's dulled down, so it does dull as it dries. So just remember that. And here you're actually wanting a bit of a light even in the darkest shadowy bits. There we go. So that's those two. Moving on. See, I'm doing one flower at a time. Never be tempted to go in and do all of the, oh, I'll just go in and do all the light, or I'll just go in and do all the dark. Don't be tempted to do that, because, as I said, it has to be wet. And if you do it when it's dry, it doesn't blend. So you need to do, I would say, a maximum of these 2 flowers at a time. And then just work on that small area. Here's the little bit that went over the line, okay? And this is what I'm going to do to correct it. I'm just blending from the outside in. And as that dries, you can add a little bit more. But hopefully you can see as that's drying, the pink is disappearing. It's so clever. Sometimes you have to go over and do it a couple of times, and that's why I say when it's dry, somehow it disappears easier. Amazing stuff. So there you go. So never be worried if you go over the line, because you can always correct it. Okay, so I've missed that flower up there. Let's do that one. I'm going to carry on now and do this, because you don't need to see all of this, and I'm going to do all of these greeneries again, doing exactly the same as I did before. Hi, okay, so we're back. So I've coloured all of that in now, and then you'll also find in your pack a small strip of this, which is some of the Designer Series paper, or DSP, from the Garden Lane Designer Series paper pack. So it's got kind of like geometric shapes on one side, but on the other side it's leaves and things like that, so it's quite good to match in with this stamp set. I've used this DSP loads actually. I didn't really like it first of all. It was what we used for a team day, and my partner in crime, Fiona, who's another demo who I work with team training, she said, oh, let's use Garden Lane, and I'm like, oh, it's green, thanks. But you know what, I've used it really loads and loads, so it just goes to show you can learn from everyone. So then you'll also find a piece of, what's that, Rococo Rose. Okay, so a bit of Rococo Rose in here. And that's just cut to the right size, which is 10 by 14.4. And then this piece of Whisper White is 13.9 by 9.5. So that just mats on there like that. And then you'll find you have a old olive card base. And then that just mats on there. And then what I've done is I've just done a little sentiment. I've just used a sentiment called that just says hello, but you could use anything. Happy birthday, thank you, thinking of you, whatever. But you want it to be a small one, okay? Because you want to you don't want to like cover up all of that hard work that you've just done. So I've just picked a small piece like this, which will go right to the edge here. And we'll just cover up a couple of leaves, so that's not too bad. So I've also given you some rhinestones. As you see, my pack has just, these ones have wandered all over the place, but that's okay. I just thought I would pop a couple of these, 3 of these underneath here, but you could put them anywhere, but keep them in the 3s because 3s look nice and pretty. And I just thought those dots kind of went with those dots, if you see what I mean. So now we can just pop that up on dimensionals, which are back in stock. I'm so happy. Now I can use dimensionals to my heart's content again. So one in there, one at the end, one in the middle, and then that one pops up on here like so. There we go. So those are your 2 blends cards. I hope you've enjoyed that, the blending today, and learning how to move the colour around with a little bit more with the colour lifter, etc. You will need your colour lifter as we go through the rest of the tutorials over the coming months, because we will be using it quite a lot. Thank you very much for being part of my Blends Club for July, and I hope to see you again next month. Thank you. Bye bye.